Thank you for joining us today for our survivorship special topic, part 2 in January. My name is Julie Lanford, and I'm the Wellness Director at Cancer Services. We are a cancer support nonprofit located in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And each month we are going to be posting a special topic video with experts in a variety of areas that are related to cancer survivorship and caregiving. And these videos will be posted on Cancer Services website, our YouTube channel, and we'll also be sharing the audio on our podcast called the Triad Cancer Connection. So all survivors and caregivers are also invited to join us for our discussion group on this topic each month. In January, our special topic discussion group will be on Tuesday, January 24th. We'll do it in person at our office on Maplewood Avenue at 1 p.m. Or you can join us on Zoom at 7 p.m. We just ask that you register. You don't have to tell us which one you're coming to, so you can decide that at the last minute if you'd like. Just go to cancerservicesonline.org/register, and you can register for the special discussion. We'll send you an email that gives you information about coming either in person or on Zoom. And if you don't show up in our office at 1 p.m. that day, we'll expect you on Zoom. Let's see. Okay, so a couple of things I'll tell you also is that we have a reflection guide to go along with our special topic, which you can find on our website. It looks like this, and you can visit cancerservicesonline.org/special topic, where you'll find the video recordings as well as this downloadable PDF guide. Okay, so our topic for today, I said again, is part 2 of priorities and well-being, maintaining focus on what's really important. If you missed part 1, you'll definitely want to go back and watch that first, because today is part 2 and we really discussed what was shared by our experts in part 1. And we of course decided to do this topic because it's January, so we're all thinking of a new year and what we might want to reset in life. So today's speaker is Kris Ryan, who's going to help us process what we heard in part 1 and think about how we might identify some personal goals based on what was shared. So Kris, hey Kris, thanks for joining.
Thank you for inviting me.
Kris is a certified coach who spent her career in human resources and leadership development before being diagnosed with endometrial cancer in December of 2017. After beating cancer, she refocused her life to wellness and cancer survivor coaching. And although originally from the Midwest, she loves Winston-Salem and has called it home since 2016. So welcome. Thanks for joining us, Kris.
Thank you.
All right, let me start by just asking you, what exactly does a certified coach do?
Well, a certified coach, the certification sort of gives us the tool set we need to help people rather than just being a best friend that you talk to. So as a coach, I work with people in the corporate environment or in the life coach way of enhancing their strengths, improving upon those. And some people have issues that they want to resolve that they get frustrated with. And so I can help them dig into that. I don't solve it for them. I just ask questions to help them get to where they find their own solution.
Awesome. So yeah, it's like being able to not just look at all the things you want to improve, but also using the skills and the strengths that you already have to enhance.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, okay. So you listened to part 1 already and heard from our experts. And I'd love for you to share what your advice is on kind of where to start based on the information that they shared with us.
So I think a great place to start with that is the wellness wheel. And that was something that Lisa talked about in part 1. And it's got different aspects of our lives that we want to keep some contact with, be it relational, intellectual, environmental, you pick. And we're never going to be strong at all of them. But when we're thinking about our goals, we want to look at how our lives are working right now in these different areas. And there could be areas we think, hey, I'm really good there. I want to keep that going. And there's other areas where you go, I really wish I was doing better there. And I'd like to make that a priority. So this wheel is a great way to get your thoughts started on what is going to be important to you. There's other things that were talked about in part one that could also get your thoughts started. DeCarlos talked about different resources to help. And he also mentioned what are going to be issues that you might need to work on, like your household bills or your medical bills. And so with that, there's also, you don't have to tackle all of this by yourself. And Lisa talked about that there are friends, and she made a really cool distinction between friends or family with like lowercase f or capital F, because the capital ones are the ones that you can absolutely rely on. They'll be there even in the middle of the night, and they will give you the straight scoop. They will tell it to you straight when you ask a question. And we need that. We need to be able to have someone hold that mirror up and help us look into it for what we really are. And therefore, it gives us a baseline for what we want to move towards.
So possibly if you have a great capital F family or friend, they could help you kind of look maybe at the wellness wheel, or maybe after a survivor has kind of looked at it and thought about what their strengths and weaknesses might be, that maybe their capital F friend or family member could help kind of shed some light maybe on what they've reflected on.
I think that would be ideal, to have the survivor, you work on it yourself, do your own thinking on it, and then bounce it off somebody else. Because you might have missed something that they know is important to you. And when you start to develop that list, I strongly recommend, don't give yourself a long list. List like a half a dozen. What is going to be impactful for you? What's going to be, and then also how easy is it? Boy, if it's easy and impactful, that is the best. That is the best. Like, for example, I may be wishing that I was walking more, I was outdoors more. And so to be outdoors gets our happy side going, because we get endorphins from being outdoors. And I'm not talking about going out jogging necessarily. Maybe it's walk 10 minutes 3 times a week. So that could be one of my goals. And I can then build on that, keep track of how I'm doing with it, maybe check weekly. Did I do it? Can I do even better this next week if I had to miss it because of bad weather? Like, I doubt anybody went walking in the freezing weather we had over Christmas. Things happen.
Yeah.
So don't be real hard on yourself if you're not like perfectly in step with where you wanted to be with your goals, but you're going to keep at it. And that's where can that big F family or friend help you to honor the progress you're making and to be your cheering squad and your nudge to keep going with it.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, Lisa talked about like combining some things if possible. So I feel like just this process can help combine kind of that relational piece with setting goals. And, I think the other thing that really helps as you were talking through that is, if you're making your list of, say, half a dozen things, or let's say you're just like, I'm just going to get every idea on paper, things that, whatever you want to consider.
Yeah.
To even just be like, okay, let's take this, it's too much, but let me think about what's easy. Like you said, okay, pick things that are going to be easy. And just circle or identify the things that are on the list that you think might be on the easier side, as, okay, these could be potentials, and then narrow that down to a smaller list, because, it's endless possibilities. It does feel like endless possibilities. Of course, we always want to like change all kinds of things, and we seem to have a lot of ideas come January, but we also know that most people who set a lot of, we call them New Year's resolutions. I think people you don't want to fail at things. That's not helpful. So you want to be realistic in what you can actually achieve. So what kind of tips do you have on that in terms of maybe being realistic about our goal setting?
Part of being realistic is keep the ones that you've prioritized, keep that to 2 or 3. You might have, like in Julie's case, she's going to have a really, really long list. All right, put that in a drawer, save it, because when you are rock solid with those 2 or 3, you can expand. So how do you get good at achieving a goal? You're going to keep track of your progress, maybe weekly, touch base with that capital F family or friend on that. And in my example of walking, maybe your family member or friend can walk with you. Then you're touching even more parts of that wellness wheel that we've been talking about that was in part 1. And that's a great way to reinforce. It's a great way to improve the happiness in your life, because cancer is challenging. I know this. I was there. And I looked for ways to look on the bright side as much as I could.
So I think that's also interesting, because we'll have viewers who are in the middle of treatment, kind of in the rough part of not feeling great. And I do think it's important that people kind of give themselves a lot of grace especially when you're in the middle of treatment or you're recovering from treatment. Thinking that you're going to be able to do a lot of things, I think, is not helpful, like giving yourself some slack. So I was actually wondering if you had thoughts about goal setting during treatment versus after treatment is over. How is that different, or how is it the same? Or do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. I would say a kind of goal during treatment is one that's going to influence that time in your life. And when treatment's done, then you can focus on other stuff. Like, for example, when I was going through chemo, I didn't like the idea of wigs, so I had scarves. So a goal of mine during chemo was, how many different scarf styles could I master?
Oh, like
And
tie.
oh yeah. And,
Okay,
tie
cool.
different scarves. And so it could be something like that, because you can actually get compliments, and you actually might start wearing scarves even when your hair grows back, because you said, that was kind of cool.
I like that. Yeah. And, I think that sometimes, and I work with people on their nutrition strategies, sometimes during treatment, it's like, eat. Like, your goal has nothing to do with how many fruits and vegetables you eat, or, any of that. It's like, we need to keep it simple, because you're always overwhelmed by all the things going on, and you need to give yourself that space to just kind of move one step at a time. So eat, learn to tie a scarf, like, be practical in what you're able to do. But also, I think it still does help to like write those things down, so you don't feel like I'm just doing nothing. You feel like you have a sense of control in an environment or a situation where there's not a lot. So I like those ideas.
Some of us, as we go through cancer, live alone. And it's important for us to realize that there's so many people, those friends and family with the capital F, are wanting to help, and it's letting them help us. And so that's another goal to have during the chemo, during all that, what chemo, radiation, whatever it
is to let people help.
Yes, in a big
So
way.
If someone were to, let's say, write a goal or like define that, I heard you say it should be something you could measure probably weekly.
You want to be able to check progress. So you could say, I have a goal of, I want to get done with chemo. Well, that's going to happen. And that's with the help of your doctor and the nurses and whatnot. So what do you want to do for quality time? Like during your chemo sessions, what do you want to do? Will you be sleeping? Will you be working on stuff? So that could be a goal that you could directly influence.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because and I guess maybe that leads into also, like, what do you do when you set a goal and you don't meet it?
Well, so that's a great point, because we don't always meet all of our goals. Otherwise, we'd all be superhuman, right? And we'd be perfect.
We
So,
would not be having this session.
and I would not have a job. So what happens is we've got to give ourselves grace, and it's a great moment to unbundle and go, okay, what got in my way? And think about that. What got in my way about that? And can I adapt to that? So if I wanted to walk, but I felt too frail or too sick to walk, it's like, what could I do instead? All right, I'm going to at least sit by the window and look outside and let that sun stream on my face. So adapt to limitations. Also, if they are obstacles that we kind of put there ourselves, like, oh, I don't have time. You got to think about that. Why is it you don't have time? Is it that you really don't like to walk, or you have trouble carving aside time for yourself because you give so much of yourself to others? Now that gets into part of wellness, is you really have got to have time for yourself, for that life balance. And so then you might just make a date with yourself at a specific time to go for a walk. And that's where that family or friend can help you.
Right. Okay. So, and I'm imagining someone's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to read during chemo. They go to chemo, they get their pre-meds, they fall asleep. They don't read, they can't focus for whatever reason. That's their opportunity to kind of adjust their goal for next time.
It is. When I was going through chemo, they gave me a lot of Benadryl. So I was sleeping really fast. And so when I was awake, I tried to make a point of thanking those people who brought me blankets or who stopped by with the little treats. Because if I could at least let them know I appreciated what they were doing, I felt like I was giving back. It just made me feel better about myself.
Yeah. And maybe that's some encouragement to people too, that your goals do not have to be big, long-term things. They can be simple things that you just think of and put it down and say, hey, I'm going to focus on this. Awesome. Okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to, that easy but impactful, thanking people,
right,
and is one of those.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, thanking is part of I guess, a gratitude practice, but it's very specific, and I like that. Thank you notes, just words. Text messaging now is even, I think, a pretty simple way to offer some thanks to somebody. Okay, so I do want to point out to people that I have our handy dandy little reflection guide that you can download on the Special Topics webpage. You can come by our Office of Cancer Services. We're happy to give you a printed copy. And then on the second page, we do have some of these questions for reflection, like Kris was talking about, that can help you, and then a place to list your goals. So we would love to hear back from you as to how you used it or what kinds of goals you're thinking of. And if people come to our discussion group, I think it'd be really interesting to hear people share with each other, and they might even get ideas from each other in the group. But I do want to ask you, Kris, as we kind of wrap up, if you have any last thoughts to share with people.
I do. And it's easy. I'm going to offer a suggestion of something that's easy and fun. It's called joy spotting. And so it's something where you might want to make it a daily practice of pausing to go, what brings me joy? It could be, for me, it's the way the sun hits my face or shines through the window, or it could be how the Christmas tree looks, or it could be the laugh of my grandchild. There's so many different ways. And so a moment of joy is to identify that and hold on to that, because when you smile, you feel good inside.
Awesome. I love that idea. And I love the idea of compiling. If you joy spot and you document that, I would love for us to have a way to sort of put some of those together, because I think that would be really awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kris, for all this helpful information. And again, I'm really excited to hear what people identify as their goals. And so I encourage you to email me or call me or come to our discussion group, whatever makes sense for you. And that pretty much wraps up our topic for January for our special expert topic. As a reminder, all of our topic videos will be posted on our website, cancerservicesonline.org/special topic, and as well as our YouTube channel and audio on our podcast, The Triad Cancer Connection. If you plan to join the survivorship discussion group, just register on our registration page, which is cancerservicesonline.org/register. And that's all. So thank you so much for joining today. Be sure to stay updated on our survivor programs by checking out our website, email newsletter, social media channels, and we hope that you have an awesome day. See you next month.